afternoon. Here we are with a lovely lady. Her name is Shalala, and Linda has got an extraordinary story, or experience really, to share with us her experience. The issues that we've been talking about with psychiatric practice. And I really don't know where to start with you, Linda, because, well, first of all, Linda contacted me by telephone, didn't you?
Yeah.
Another lady who we're helping referred Linda to me, and I offered for Linda to talk about give her testimony to the Australian people. So here we are. I picked her up from Fremantle station, but originally, well, I'm just trying to work out where to start really.
Yeah.
You know, it's fine.
Yeah.
I think if we perhaps start from the beginning. You're from New South Wales, aren't you?
Liverpool, Sydney.
Sydney, okay,
Yeah.
so New South Wales, Sydney, and you were
Yeah.
born on a
Ship in the Pacific.
okay, and your parents are from
England.
okay, so they're from the United Kingdom,
Yeah.
and you went to New South Wales.
Well,
Do you know what year? How old you were?
I think I was born 1964.
Okay,
But I was adopted in May of '64. I was born in March, and then I was given a birth date of the 8th of October, and I think I went to school when I was 3. Yeah.
Okay, so Linda has been subjected to psychiatric practice since the age of 16,
Yes.
and you were locked up in a psychiatric facility.
For 3 months in a locked ward in Liverpool Hospital in Sydney.
Okay, and as a result of an experience,
I was raped, literally raped.
okay, and this happened at your home, but
No, it happened at my boyfriend's place at the time, but I was initially raped when I was 8 years old and taken to the Children's Hospital and told that I was having a tonsil licked.
so they told you were having your tonsils out,
Yeah.
and when you experienced a traumatic experience. Okay, so ever since then, you've pretty much been through hell, really. So how did you want to? I'm keen for you just to talk about your story and
I grew up in the outskirts of Sydney in Liverpool with market gardens and creeks and open lands. There was a high school behind us, Ashcroft High. I went to a private college, All Saints Liverpool. I was St Mary's and Patrician Brothers then. I did elocution, deportment, speech, drama, arts, Latin, French, economics, and others. I did marching, I was in choirs, I did science. I decided I wanted to do science in my life. So I was a cadet in St John Ambulance at the age of 14. I became a cadet leader. I became member in charge of Newcastle Division in Sydney, on the northern suburbs.
that's for the Red Cross.
St John Ambulance.
St John Ambulance.
Yeah, I was member in charge of Division of St John Ambulance in Castle Hill.
All right, I'm keen for you to tell about as you're saying, about your educational experience
Yeah.
and your work experience.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of things, you've got a lot of skills. Did you want to talk more about your education and your work experiences
Yeah.
over the years?
I was awarded a grand prior in St John Ambulance from the Governor General, Sir Rowan Cutler, in first aid. I did 10 years of pathology. I did veterinary pathology and started out as a hand at the Department of Agriculture.
Where did you study veterinary?
At Granville TAFE.
Okay, what's the course called?
Pathology.
Pathology. Okay. What sort of pathology is it?
Veterinary and human pathology.
Okay, and that was at a TAFE in New South Wales?
New South Wales and Sydney. I later went on to Sydney to the Institute.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you worked for the Department of Agriculture?
I worked as a hand for about 3 or 4 months, and my dad was an honorary ranger. I did get a traineeship in the Red Cross in the blood transfusion service in Clarence Street, Sydney. I was assaulted after having been there a few months by my boyfriend at the time, who was 10 years older than me, and I was taken to hospital.
That was in the workplace?
No, that was at his place.
Okay, so that wasn't...
And then I took 3 months off work, and because I'd taken 3 months off work, they had changed my departments. I was in prenatal. I was doing all the blood panel cells for the Pacific and all the standards for the Pacific in blood, and I was doing prenatal testing.
And which organisation was it?
The Red Cross.
Okay.
Blood transfusion service. And then I was transferred after I was spent 3 months in hospital in Liverpool's psych ward, in a locked ward. I was put into the care of the assailant for a further 6 years. My sister left home within 12 months and went and lived with her boyfriend, and later got married. And my brother went to a foster family. He was kicked out of the house by dad because they had an argument, and mum and dad ended up splitting up over it, and mum later went to live at Epping in a housing department place, and dad went to a bedsitter at Bass Hill, and then later to Campbelltown.
And you were married as well at one stage, is that?
1996 I was married to Paul Kenneth Hodgkinson. We met at WASCA at Charles Sturt University, and I did some childcare at TAFE while I was there, and I used to teach Bible study. I used to go into WASCA Primary School, and I used to teach for a short period of time scripture.
Were you studying at the university, or you were working in childcare?
I studied childcare a little, but I didn't pass because of mental health, and I started studying because I'd been...
Not because of your mental health, but because of what the government has done to you, and the psychiatric
institutes
profession.
Yeah.
It's not a profession, sorry.
Yeah.
I know that they are murdering people, and that they engage in crimes against humanity, and that they've murdered the last 200 years throughout the world, politically approved and funded practice that they are murdering people in those psychiatric facilities.
Yeah.
And
I went through 3 inquests in Canberra.
Okay, what were those inquests?
I can't remember them. One was Bob Beattie's, but that was one most recent one I went to. There was 2 others, I can't remember them very well.
From
Canberra,
okay.
Yeah.
So they've had inquiries and inquests.
Inquests.
Yeah.
Bob Beattie was an international journalist.
Okay. Now what seems to happen to me, in Australia at least, is that they have these psychiatric facilities and people die, and then they close them, and then they open up another place, and then they open up another place, and over a period of time, like the last major commission inquiry they've had in Western Australia was in 1963. That's exactly 50 years this year, in which I'm contesting the state election, Western Australia and Willagee electorate, and that's 50 years this year, which I want a royal commission to go back 50 years into deaths related from psychiatric practice. It's not just the deaths, it's the way that they treatments, they engaged in human rights abuses. We were talking about inquiries, when there's an inquiry and investigation, and then they discover people have died, and they might close that facility, but they always open up another one.
Yeah,
so
that's correct.
So if you look at the last century in Australia, I want this Royal Commission to go back 50 years, and I want it across the whole country. But if I have to start in Western Australia, because I don't think there's anyone fighting as hard as me for
No.
this. So, even just going back 50 years, we're going to see hundreds of thousands of deaths across Australia. 20 to 25,000 in Western Australia over the past 50 years. That's my conjecture, based on what Helen Morton has told the Parliament, which I've spoken about publicly, and also the research engaged. So they have inquiries, but they have to stop the practice of psychiatry. They have to stop it because of all the death, and you cannot let people continue to practice, and they're engaged in killing people, and the human rights abuses. Would you say that they're engaged in human rights abuses?
Absolutely. I studied civil rights, human rights and women in the legal system in Australia at Canberra University as an undergraduate. I didn't pass civil rights or human rights, but I passed my master's subject in women in the Australian legal system, and it's wrong. It is totally wrong.
So how come you didn't pass the legal?
I didn't complete my science degree because of mental health.
So what university was that?
Canberra University.
So you were doing a science degree and
science law.
Science law, and you would you also did some master's units.
In ECU, I was doing masters by research.
In Western Australia.
In Western Australia.
So Edith Cowan University.
Yeah.
Which campus?
Joondalup.
Joondalup.
Yeah.
And you were doing a master in
research in justice and law, but they've discontinued the course. So I don't know what's going to happen to my masters.
So you were doing that by thesis or coursework?
Coursework. No, thesis. Yeah, I'm doing my thesis.
And you were writing a paper about this area of law, mental health.
Mental health law.
Okay, I've got a Master of Education in specialising in leadership management. I did that at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And I did my first degree in physical education at Edith Cowan in Mount Lawley.
Yeah.
And social science and secondary education. So I've been teaching 17 years.
Yeah.
And Edith Cowan's a great university. As a phys ed teacher and health teacher, as well as a researcher, like I've published books, 4 books.
Yeah.
Published books.
Yeah.
So as a teacher, as a researcher, I'm horrified by what they do to people.
Yeah.
You know. So what sort of human rights abuses do you think, having engaged in legal studies and also your personal experiences, what sort of human rights abuses does the public need to know about?
Locking people up in mental institutions en masse, the sexual assaults that happen between the staff and the patients. The women are petrified to talk up about it. I have been in Cumberland Hospital. My mother was in Cumberland Hospital. My father was in Rydalmere. My mother was in Rydalmere. And they have been tortured. They had shock treatment. I had shock treatment here in Perth, in Fremantle. I've got scars on my feet. I don't know if you can still see them.
It's alright, we'll get a bit of a footage if you want to.
Yeah.
We'll just show the public.
Yeah.
If you're willing.
I think, I don't know if you can see them now, but I've got a scar there and a scar there and a scar there.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Just want to turn your feet in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So that's from, you're saying that's from?
Shock treatment.
Okay. So that's from the ECT.
Yeah.
That they give.
Yeah.
Why is it doing that?
I don't know.
Okay. That's alright. Yeah, that's pretty bad. So, how would you characterise
It's
ECT?
barbaric. It's barbaric. They lay you on a table. They put electrodes to your skull. They put a syringe in your arm with sedation in it. They have you hooked up to some sort of electric current, and they had my feet hooked up as well, my whole body. I can't recall a lot of it, but I do remember I was taken forcibly down, and I didn't get violent or aggressive about it.
Well, would you say that they engaged in violence against society?
Yes, definitely. Something like what the Jews experienced in the war.
I agree. I believe this is like, it's a form of Nazism. This is, when you analyse this objectively, what they do throughout the whole world, it's a form of Nazism because it's the persecution of people. They actually hunt people down. And I'll give you a clear example. In the paper, this is the day after Christmas, wrong man held and drugged by Graylands. Now, the entire state of Western Australia knows about this, that a man walked out of Graylands, and we got a lady interviewed, Bridget, who walked out of there.
Yeah.
Maybe that gentleman was looking for me to interview him. I wish to God that I'd found him, because I would have interviewed him.
Yeah.
But they sent out a hunt for, the psychiatrists use the police.
Yes.
Do you see that as...
It's barbaric. It's barbaric. I have been thrown literally in the back of paddy wagons all over Canberra and in Perth once. It was the most horrendous experience. I've never committed a criminal offence in my life. I've never taken drugs. I've never done tobacco, alcohol. I barely even drink tea or coffee. And I have been treated...
So you're a good person. And
basically normal, everyday, law-abiding citizen that hasn't done anything wrong in the community.
That's right. So, do you characterise, would you characterise what's happened to you, what they do to you, as criminal behaviour? Absolutely
Barbaric.
Okay.
Torture.
Because I believe it is criminal to do what they're doing to our society, and that the government is involved in criminal behaviour against the citizen population.
Yeah.
And that they created laws which allow the politicians, allow them to do it, to persecute people. And they seem to pick on people who are a bit vulnerable.
Yeah, the marginalised in society. The single mothers, the single fathers, children. Sometimes it's done by families for their inheritance, so that they don't know about it, and so before they're even told, they're beneficiaries for wills. I know I was beneficiaries of wills ever since I was 16, and I haven't got any of it.
They steal people's money and assets, and in Western Australia they're doing it through the government's public trust. The government is doing this to our citizens, but they do it all over the world, you see. It's criminal. They are controlling millions, possibly billions of dollars of people's money in the public trust, the government's public trust. They are forcing people to live on a few dollars a week.
Yes.
Half the people that are living on the street homeless have their bank accounts controlled by the government's public trust. They are investing, so they give them a few dollars to live on, and then they invest that money in the corporate sector.
Yes.
It is totally criminal, corrupt behaviour.
Yeah.
And they've got so much blood on their hands. The politicians won't stop it. The judges are responsible. I believe all the people that won't stop it are murderers. The politicians are murderers if they don't stop it. The judges are murderers if they don't stop it. The police are helping them. And anybody working in that industry is guilty because they've got blood on their hands. There's death. There's got to be at least 100,000 people have died across Australia in the last 50 years as a result of psychiatric practice. 100,000. We have the biggest Royal Commission we've ever had, and that will come out. Because in Western Australia, it's between 20 and 25,000 in the past 50 years. And all the people helping people running the Mental Health Review Board, the people running the State Administrative Tribunal, they're all involved, and it's criminal behaviour. This man here escaped from Graylands. You know, obviously the people die out there. How many people die? They got a music teacher locked up in Fremantle.
Yeah.
She's been locked up for 18 months. She's a teacher, music teacher. I got told this the other day. And her husband now has got a lawyer to try and get her out. And I'll ask you about that in a minute, but what I wanted, before I forget, is this. They send out, they get the police to go hunt them down, just like the Nazis did, and they got the wrong guy. They actually got the wrong man, and they took him back to Graylands, and they drugged him.
Yeah.
How criminal is that? How criminal is that, and cruel, and human rights abuse? It's like Nazism, hunting down people, and you get the wrong person, and you lock them up, and you drug them with dangerous chemical compounds.
The war veterans from the Vietnam War know what it's like. A lot of them went through trauma treatment, and a lot of them are on psychiatric drugs.
They drug everybody. They will label every human being on the planet as so-called mentally ill, so they can drug them to death, so they can drug them for economic profit. So they get the money from the pharmaceutical industry. You know, $200 million a year the Health Department of Western Australia gives the pharmaceutical industry. It's a big economic corruption. You know, murder, economic corruption, torture, slavery. It's just disgusting. It's so disgusting. And for the police to say, Superintendent Paul Coombs said correct police procedures were followed. Well, obviously they weren't. When you've hunted down a person, you've got the wrong man, and you take him back there to be drugged with dangerous chemical compounds. So they're lying. And, you know, the police don't provide protection for citizens anymore. They're just working for the government.
Yeah.
And my family needs protection. The government's engaging in corruption and violence against my family. They're murdering my brother. They're using his money and tax money now in the court to try and force a VRO against me to stop me having contact with my own sibling, with my brother David. The government is engaged in violence against my family by doing that, engaged in corruption, using my brother's money to do it, to stop siblings having contact with each other. That's how corrupt it is, you know. And so obviously it's like Nazism, because hunting down people, innocent people who are trying to live their lives, who are working or educating themselves, you know, going to TAFE or university or studying, and you hunt them down. You don't let go.
Yeah.
They don't let go. And then lock them up and drug them to death.
Yeah.
And they have these, you know what they have, the community treatment orders.
Yeah. I'm on a community treatment order in Perth, and I know if I go interstate, they will follow me interstate. I tried to go to Melbourne and Sydney to follow a tennis star that I was interested in, and they sedated my water, and I could not, and I missed the plane
to the game, to the match.
to the tennis match. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the tennis match? What was
It was a Melbourne Open.
Yeah.
Down in Melbourne, and I was going to go to the tennis down there, then fly to Sydney to see this tennis player in Sydney at White City, and then I was going to go to Dubbo.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're able to have a normal life?
No, they control you. It's like Big Brother.
Yeah. So they have this power over you?
Yeah, a control freak kind of thing.
Yeah. It's the same experience all the time. Like, all the people, you listen to their testimonies and their evidence.
Yeah.
And all the research evidence. It's the same type of experiences that.
And now I'm being psychologically harassed. Everything I touch, everything I write, everything I seem to want, I put something down, 2 minutes later someone's taken it, and then it's brought back before me, maybe a month, 2 months later. They've switched my diaries. I have 3 different 2012 diaries because they kept taking my diaries.
And they, what about your paperwork? You've said you've had problems with it.
I've had problems with my paperwork disappearing constantly. Everything has disappeared at one stage or another. I have very little belongings. I had 2 hospital bags full of belongings. They've all disappeared. My clothing has been altered and ruined. Some of my clothing has been altered. The tops have been altered so they're lowered. I can't sew, so I can't fix them.
So they're taking stuff from you. They're doing this.
Yeah.
The people that are
in the mental
you.
health system.
Yeah, the
psychiatrists and the mental health workers.
And they get other people to do all their dirty work, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So they take things from you. What else? What other human rights abuses are they engaged? Like what?
I've been on a disability pension for 28 years. When I've got 2 folders that thick, not here, but I can show you, full of qualifications and signed by JPs.
Yeah. And what's happened to them?
I've still got them, I think, but I'm looking for work. I've got an appointment tomorrow for work.
Yeah.
I don't know what will happen. I need supported work to get back into the workforce because I haven't been working for probably 5 years.
Okay, because they keep locking you up.
Yeah, basically.
So basically, it's all forced.
Yeah.
Is this any way voluntary for you?
I have tried being a voluntary patient, but voluntary isn't voluntary patient. It means you've got to compulsively take medication, you've got to compulsively see doctors, and if you have a fit of any sort, now I faint in public, then you're drugged, you're put in the back of a paddy wagon, I have low blood pressure and I just faint on hot days, and no one knows me, so they put me in a paddy wagon and take me to a psych ward.
Well, psychiatrists don't have voluntary treatment. That's a lot of rubbish. It's all forced treatment because if you refuse their treatment, they force it on people. That's not voluntary, is it? Voluntary is when you say no to something and you walk away, and they go, okay. Like real doctors. But they don't do that. They don't have that in psychiatry. It's forced on you. There's no such thing as voluntary. It's bullshit. It's rubbish.
Yeah.
It's you either do this. It's the same experience everywhere from all the evidence I've seen.
Yeah.
That if you say, oh no, I don't want that. Like for example, did you want ECT?
No.
Have you ever wanted to have it?
No.
So it's forced on you.
Yeah.
And what if you said no?
Then I would be drugged and it still would have been given to me.
Okay, so that's torture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that torture?
It is torture.
It is torture.
Yeah.
So if you, Linda, how many times have you been given ECT?
I was given it 3 times a week for 12 months.
Jesus, where was that?
Fremantle Hospital last year.
And you'd never wanted to have it?
No.
So you said no?
No.
So you refused the treatment?
Yeah.
And they forced it on you?
Yeah.
Okay. And any time there's a pill involved or an injection?
You don't have a right to refuse.
Yeah.
If you refuse, they say we will take you back to the psych ward where the conditions are horrific.
And what sort of horrific conditions are?
Your clothing is all taken from you. Your belongings are taken from you. In one case, I was put in a white gown, strip searched. I was put into a locked ward with other women and men in Cumberland. I was raped repeatedly in there after I had been a leading member of the community in Parramatta, in the blood transfusion service in Parramatta. I had no idea that Cumberland existed. And right from where I was living at Kearney House at Parramatta Hospital, where I was an honorary resident in pathology, then I was taken, when I lost my job in the Red Cross because of the recession in the 90s, 91, 92, I lost my job during the recession, and then they put me in a psych ward.
Do you think psychiatry should be stopped?
Yes, I totally disagree with it.
Do you think they should be jailed for what they've done?
I feel
prosecuted?
I think they should be prosecuted. I think the people responsible for this are politicians, and they're just trying to give a two-caste system in society between the upper and the lower class.
Yeah, it's the people in power persecuting the people who have got no power.
And it's just an economic system to keep the whole economy running. There has to be poor people, so they put them in psych centres. There has to be people in the working class, so they're given jobs in the trades. They get up at 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, sometimes to get to work, and they work long hours, and they're treated roughly. And then you've got the middle class who are working class as well, and then you've got high society that just roll off the bank and just live off everyone's pains.
Yeah, they're pretty much engaging in criminal behaviour against a civilian population.
Yeah.
Murdering people and stealing people's money and assets, and it's going to stop, because I just think it's horrific. And it's just, you know, the more I investigate, the more horrified I am about what they're doing. I believe that psychiatrists should be jailed. Or I think there needs to be a royal commission. They need to find out how many people died, and they need to have prosecutions, and they need to have a law in Australia that if they want to have a mental health act, they have to have written in there that the practice of psychiatry is not permitted in Australia because of all the horrific death over the past 200 years. Why should we allow this to go on?
But they do it to migrants. They come here, they don't know English, they're trying to get educated, they're trying to get a job, they're trying to get on in society, so they put them in nursing homes, they employ them as cleaners, they don't recognise their qualifications. Some of them have been brilliant overseas professors, doctors, lawyers, barristers, solicitors, and they're working class citizens again because they are in society where they're not acknowledged. I worked with political prisoners in the Red Cross from South America and from Uruguay, from Paraguay, from Chile, you know? And they were all professors and doctors and tennis players and professional people.
Professional people getting locked up by their own government.
Yeah.
Well, they try and jail me if they can.
Yeah.
For political reasons.
Yeah.
But they won't do it because they know I'm a Christian teacher, and they'll end up in hell. Because I'll never forgive them for it. So, you know, Jesus said, if you forgive people their sins, they're forgiven. If you don't forgive their sins, they're not forgiven. You know? So I don't have to forgive you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if anyone hurts me, I won't forgive you, in a sense. A little things is okay, you know. But not if you throw me in jail for political reasons.
That's what happened to these people. They were thrown in jail by the South American government.
Yeah.
During the I can't think of the word. Who was that? Who was that person who was in South America?
Burma, no, that a woman.
South
America.
America.
That was jailed in her own country.
Yeah.